Most people think they control their mind. They don't. They just follow it. And if you've ever wondered why your thoughts sabotage you, why motivation fades, or why you react in ways you later regret, this isn't a discipline problem. It's a control problem. Your mind was never designed to obey you automatically. It was designed to protect you. And protection doesn't always mean accuracy. That's why trying to think positive never works for long. Because control doesn't start with force. It starts with understanding. There are psychological mechanisms that quietly run your mind every day. Once you see them clearly, control stops being mysterious. Let's start with the first one. Most people believe controlling the mind means controlling thoughts. That's the first mistake. Thoughts arise automatically. You don't choose the first thought. You choose what you stay with. Attention is the real currency of the mind. Whatever you give attention to grows louder. Fear strengthens when you keep feeding it focus. Doubt becomes convincing when you replay it repeatedly. Confidence feels rare because attention is rarely placed on competence. Your mind follows attention, not intention. That's why saying, "I want to be calm," does nothing. But redirecting attention changes everything. When you stop wrestling with thoughts and start repositioning focus, the mind slowly recalibrates. Control begins not by silencing the mind, but by choosing where it looks. Once attention shifts, the next layer becomes visible. The mind doesn't run on reason. It runs on repetition. Whatever happens often enough feels true, even if it isn't. This is why negative self-talk becomes believable. Not because it's accurate, but because it's familiar. The brain prioritizes predictability over truth. Familiar thoughts feel safe, even when they're destructive. That's why insight alone doesn't change behavior. Understanding something once doesn't override a pattern. Patterns are replaced by stronger patterns. Consistency beats intensity every time. Control comes from repetition aligned with awareness. Not sudden motivation. Not emotional highs. Just repeated signals telling the mind what matters. When patterns start shifting, another resistance appears. Your mind isn't attached to comfort. It's attached to identity. Anything that threatens who you believe you are triggers resistance. Even positive change. This is why self-sabotage happens right before progress. The mind prefers familiar suffering over unfamiliar growth. Control feels dangerous to the ego. Because control implies responsibility, and responsibility removes excuses. So the mind creates hesitation, distraction, doubt. Not to hurt you, but to keep identity stable. True control begins when you expect resistance. When you stop interpreting discomfort as a sign to stop, and start seeing it as a signal you're moving beyond old identity. Once identity loosens its grip, the next mechanism becomes clear. Most people obey emotions automatically. If they feel anxious, they avoid. If they feel bored, they escape. If they feel uncomfortable, they retreat. But emotions are feedback, not instructions. They signal internal states. They don't dictate behavior. The problem isn't emotion, it's unexamined emotion. When emotion goes unobserved, it takes control. When it's noticed without reaction, it loses authority. Control doesn't mean suppressing feelings. It means creating space between feeling and action. That space is where choice lives, and choice is the foundation of mental control. At this point, most people assume they're failing. They're not. Under stress, the mind hands control back to habits. This isn't weakness, it's efficiency. The brain conserves energy by running scripts. That's why stress reveals patterns rather than creating them. Control isn't tested in calm moments, it's tested under pressure. That's why building control requires rehearsal before stress. not during it. You don't rise to discipline. You fall to training. Mental control is built in neutral moments, so it holds under emotional load. Once automation is understood, the final layer appears. The highest level of mental control isn't domination, it's awareness. Awareness interrupts unconscious loops. It turns reactions into observations. It slows impulsive momentum. Most people live inside their thoughts. Control begins when you step outside them, not by judging, not by fighting, but by noticing. What you can observe, you can influence. What you identify with controls you. Awareness weakens the grip of automatic thinking. It creates distance, and distance creates freedom. This is why awareness practices outperform motivation. They don't rely on willpower. They change the relationship with the mind itself. Without control, the mind defaults to fear, comparison, distraction. You don't choose reactions. You justify them afterward. Over time, this creates a sense of powerlessness. Not because you lack ability, but because control was never trained. The cost isn't failure. It's living reactively, letting moods decide behavior, letting impulses shape identity. Mental control isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming deliberate. It's not about forcing thoughts away. It's about choosing where attention rests. It's not about discipline alone. It's about understanding how the mind actually works. When you understand the system, control stops being exhausting. It becomes natural. If you feel like your mind runs you instead of the other way around, that's not a flaw. It's a skill gap. And skills can be trained. The moment you stop fighting your mind and start observing it, control quietly begins.